All right, here we go. OverDrive off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker, and up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan back in the house after taking some time off out west. And how's everyone doing out there?
Grappler back as well.
Grappler's back.
Yes.
That's right. The Grappler was on his beautiful honeymoon, and seeing the pictures, they were phenomenal, and it sounds like I guess he survived, so he made his way back. That's always a good sign.
Oh, yeah. Now, after the honeymoon, now you get ready for the grind.
Now it's a bit of a different transition.
Now you're going to be walking into a hornet's nest. And be ready.
There's a reason why there's a saying, the honeymoon's over.
Or the honeymoon phase.
Oh, yeah, you're still in the honeymoon phase. That's right. But
well, maybe kids are in the future. Who knows? And then when that happens, because I made a mortal sin yesterday. I made one of the bigger mistakes in my parenting.
You tried to golf and you weren't supposed to.
No. This one is one that I think every parent can relate to, and possibly more so the dads than the moms. But that may not be the case. So you guys have been around me. I got allergies at times, right? It can flare up. And I am an obnoxious sneezer, like very loud, very unnecessarily
aggressive.
Bold,
and do you do like me, like 20 in a row? 20
I can get into that. I can get into a rapid-fire sneeze. But sometimes it's just a monster, right? Like it is a nuclear sneeze. And we were at my sister-in-law and brother-in-law's house in Ancaster yesterday, Trevor and Heather, and we were there for my father-in-law's 70th birthday. We had a little surprise party for him. Awesome day. They have a pool, beautiful pool. We were in the pool all day. So you know where this is going. We left there at like 8 o'clock. My kids are out cold within 5 minutes, right? And my kids are pretty good at transferring. In fact, they're very good at transferring as long as they're still asleep when you pull into the driveway. About 10 minutes before we got home,
sneeze attack.
I had a massive sneeze, and I woke them both up. I thought my wife was going to say, pull over. I will be driving, and you can walk home. She was so angry, and I can't even blame her because it was just you can't do that. You can't have a loud sneeze.
I always have a simple comeback for a line like that, which all wives have that line. I always say, yeah, I wanted to do that.
Oh, really? What does that explain?
It's like
sarcastically
as if,
you're saying.
Yeah, sarcastically, exactly. I'm like, yeah, because I wanted to do that and wake them up and piss you off. That was my whole intention.
Exactly what I said. I'm like, you think I can control a sneeze? I'm driving here.
And do you think I didn't want that to happen more than anyone in this car? So I don't need the line.
Right,
I don't need the line.
Well, the line was waiting for me, and the eyes were waiting for me.
Are you able to keep a sneeze in? I know people who go like they kind of like hold it. Like for me, I like letting it out, but I always heard, and maybe this is like it could be fake news. Somewhere along the line, I read or something that every time you sneeze, your heart stops for a second. And if you have that always scares me. I
don't think that cannot be true, dude. That has got to be fake news.
I swear to God, it just for a second, like I as you sneeze, I don't know why.
I don't know.
So in my mind, if I sneeze like 3 times in a row, I'm like, is the fourth one going to take me down? Do I drop?
Okay.
Like I get worried about that. Maybe I hope that's fake news, but that's always been in the back of my mind. I like to let my sneezes out, but I know people who hold them in.
Yeah, but then they blow their neck out.
You got a yard sale. You got to yug off snot everywhere. It's not happening.
You got to do it, but if you hold in a sneeze, that's how someone like gets a hernia or blows their neck out. Or man, you can't do it. So, I guess. Listen, we love having the Grappler back, and we're painting a picture for his beautiful future, and we look forward to it. Him and the lovely Kelly, of course. So. Anyway, good to have you back. Good to have the Grappler back. And this is a big week, right? Everyone keeps saying, here we go. It's a big week.
Oh, it's going. I'm telling you, I think it's going to be a massive week.
You think it's going to be a big week?
Well, I was out in Alberta. I was in a couple of these cities. I was in Calgary last night. I mean, there's a buzz there going like, what are we doing? Like, to me, I think there's going to be – again, maybe I don't want to build things up and disappoint, but you're seeing already like trades being Torrey Krug's like, no, I'm good. Not heading to Philly.
Here's the thing that stood out to me over the weekend, because there was a deal this afternoon. Taylor Hall and Nick Foligno are on their way to Chicago for a couple of players coming back to Boston. And with all due respect to the players coming back, they very well could factor in. But it's basically it's about salaries moving around, Boston trying to find some flexibility. And the belief is maybe they try to take a run at Tyler Bertuzzi, keep him in Boston, among other possibilities there. And we'll get into it from Boston's side and from Chicago's side. But what has also been reported is that Taylor Hall, I believe, had a 16-team no trade. And one of the teams that was not on that was Chicago, so they could pull this off. Over the weekend, it sounded as if a monster deal between Philly and St. Louis was brewing, but Torrey Krug wouldn't waive his no trade, so that's now, as of now, off the table. And all I can think of is this is another example of the NHL shooting themselves in the foot. They have a hard salary cap, absolutely no flexibility, and every player in the league has a no trade. Like, it's so stupid compared to the other leagues. I looked it up. Cap Friendly, according to Cap Friendly, 217 players have some form of a no trade or a no movement clause. Wow. Could you possibly explain that? How someone who is 217th in the league. Now, that excludes players on entry-level deals. So there's some great young players that don't have access to that.
What are you looking for to make it to your liking, though? Like, what's reasonable?
Stop handing them out would be reasonable. Yes.
That's on the managers, though. That's on the managers.
Exactly.
Right?
They all do it. But, Torrey Krug's a good player, but the idea that he's got a no trade and a no move is crazy.
But you know the deal, Hayes. If Joe Blow gets it, then you sign somewhere, you're like, I'm getting that too. Don't even think about it.
Of course.
Are you saying like a league mandate, like have it in the collective bargaining agreement where there's no such thing?
I would probably push for that if it were my league. Yes, I would. I'm not suggesting the players would accept it. Obviously, they put a stake in the ground and say, no way. I understand what the players want.
Think how much better it would be for fan interest if it was like season's over, the cup was handed out 2 weeks ago, and then it's literally a yard sale for 3 months.
At least an option.
Oh,
for a
yeah.
yard sale if you want it to be.
I think you could probably find somewhere in the middle where it's like if you're signing a 7-year deal, the first 3 years of that deal, you can make a modified no trade or whatever. But from 4 to 7 of those deals, like nothing implemented. Because that's where I think it's the back end of these deals that jam up everybody. But because when Torrey Krug was signing in St. Louis, Doug Armstrong wanted him there. He went past Alex Pietrangelo and said, I'm bringing in Krug. So I'm sure with his camp, it's like, yeah, I'll give you a no trade. You're not going anywhere. I'm just signing you to set whatever it was, 7 years at $7 million, whatever, 7 times 6. So, but it's year 3, 4, 5, 6 where it hasn't worked out, or maybe there's been injuries, or you want to move on, or your organization has changed. That's where that no move is a problem, because you're like, we're changing dynamic. Now we got to ask this guy.
And he has all the right in the world to say no.
He does have that.
Absolutely, he's got
that right. But that's where I think maybe you go, okay, the first 3 years of a long-term deal can be a modified no trade or a no trade. Outside that, it's enough. Like, at that point.
If you're going to go that far, Hayes, you should have it. No, that's not allowed. If you want to have an exciting, player movement and transactions, you might as well go this far, too. Each team gets 2 guys a year. At the end of the year, they can pay them the remainder of their salary, and they're gone off the books. No penalty, nothing.
But I agree with that. If I were running the league, it'd be bedlam. You would have the opportunity for way more movement. League teams aren't going to do that because owners don't want to pay guys who aren't going to play for them. But again, according to Cap Friendly, 217. Now, some of that is like a 6-team no trade or modified. It's not, but there are a number of guys in the league. And a lot of them are the best players. Full no trade, full no move. Right? Like look at John Tavares here, who now John was a free agent, incredibly sought after, great player in his prime. Of course he held a ton of leverage, and he was going to get that everywhere he was going to go.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that even if it wasn't there, the Leafs would be looking to trade him one way or the other. Just as an example, this idea that maybe change could be in the air or the possibility for move, you can't even entertain it. Because it's a full no trade, full no movement. And guess what? Matthews is getting it next. And, the next guy's
Nylander or whoever.
Yeah, they're all likely going to get it. And it's an observation about the league that it's already incredibly restrictive with the salary cap being the way that it is. COVID clearly hurt it even more because there's been no flexibility, and there's no movement on that. And then there are players in the league, second pairing guys, third liners with no trade clauses. What are you doing? It just like in the NBA, I think there was one guy with a no trade. It was Bradley Beal. That was it. LeBron's walking around, and you could flip him. It's crazy.
Move my theory. The first 3 years, apply that to John Tavares' contract. What kind of conversations would we be having right now if his no trade kicked in year 4 or 5? Now all of a sudden you're going, he's up, or they're going to look at it.
You still got to get a dance partner to take it on.
Sure, I understand that, but what I'm saying is there would be conversations if you're looking at the dynamic, right?
You look at the way Lou Lamoriello operates, and he always gets criticized as being, a bit of a dinosaur, and he hasn't come around to the way the league is built. He generally has a policy, and I know in Nashville they had it forever with Poile. And I'm not saying it's perfect, and I understand why you're like, in the moment, if we got to get the guy, fine, we got to get the guy.
Right.
But there are some teams and some managers who are like, we're not giving it to you. Like, if you want to play here, we need flexibility at some point. Because that Philly-St. Louis deal, it sounded like it was a monster trade.
But there's the question: why would you have a monster package including a guy that you had to go and ask, and you would have figured it would? Like, wouldn't you go to him first and say, "Look, we're thinking of doing something"? And I'm sure Doug Armstrong's not exactly thrilled that information got out,
right?
Because I think he keeps things pretty tidy over there. But don't you go to him and say, "Look, man, we're thinking. Are you willing to do it or not?" Before that leaks out and then you got a mess on your hands?
You would think so.
You know what I mean? Like, why include a guy in a package that you have to ask?
My only possible explanation for that is now you got peer pressure. Now, you can stick around, but we don't want you. So, sure, you can activate that. Yeah, you can come to camp if you want, but we don't really want you.
And the big saying, Hazy, is don't ask the guy because it's his right to the no trade. But once you're in that position as a player, you might as well get the hell out of Dodge and then go to Danny Briere and say, look, man, I don't really want to be here. Can you toss me somewhere else if possible?
Well, that's what's happening, though. Clearly that's what's happening right now is Danny Briere is going, I need to pull this off, so I need to find a place where Torrey Krug wants to play. And he's trying to finagle a deal to move him on because that has to happen. Mm-hmm. It's obvious that Danny Briere is trying to clear a lot of things out. He might not want Torrey Krug moving forward. He probably was going to flip him at some point if he wants to bottom out. Do you believe that Philly's trying to bottom out or at least heading in that direction?
They've already bottomed out. They're just trying to get rid of money and move on.
Exactly. So you're moving on. So you're not going to take Torrey Krug on and go like that's a guy we're building around. What you're doing is you're probably going to move him onto somebody else. But that's where the beauty or the non-beauty of all of this is you've got to work with the player to have some flexibility to go, okay, accept the trade there, but he's turning you to organization XYZ type of thing. So I think there's going to be a ton of movement here. I was sitting on the plane beside a guy today, and he asked me, he goes, I don't want to bother you, but he goes, do you think free agency is going to be crazy? And I said, I think the draft's going to be crazy. I actually think the draft is going to lead to free agency being very active, but I think what we're going to see is some crazy stuff leading up to it.
In terms of deals,
trades and stuff. Exactly.
About.
Like I'm just,
I love that one, Hayes. They all got to look each other in the face on the floor. It's like, you can't text the guy the day before.
Yeah.
Got to be on the floor to get a deal done. Yeah. And then nothing ends up. I hope you're right, Noodles. And every year, I fall for it hook, line, and sinker. Like, here we go. It is go time. McDavid's getting flipped tonight. And
exactly.
Nothing ends up actually happening. But there are names. What I've taken out of the weekend is you look at the Nashville trading Ryan Johansson. For Galchenyuk. Effectively, contract for contract, Galchenyuk's got no future there.
Right.
That's Nashville just saying, we got to get out from under stuff, right? Philly's doing the same thing. Boston just did it. Like Taylor Hall and Foligno for the two players they acquired, that's just simply we got to move on. You know, and that is something that could be changing in the NHL and something that's been happening in other leagues, notably the NBA, where it's like you try to get as much value as you can, clearly. And ideally you get some picks, you get some prospects, but really it's not actually about improving your team in the moment. It's simply about relieving cap space. Like, it's simply about dumping money, right? And that's the nature of where you're at in a lot of pro sports when it comes to a hard salary cap, and one that really hasn't moved a lot due to COVID and, deals with the PA, et cetera. So that's what I think Philly's trying to do, is move money around, basically. I think Nashville moving money around. Boston clearly just did that today. And I wouldn't be surprised if more teams end up lining up and doing the same thing.
But that, I guess, what it does is it sets the table either for bigger moves on trades or signings at free agency, and maybe a little bit of both. You mentioned, if they're trying to clear the table for Tyler Bertuzzi. I like that Orlov defenseman.
Yeah.
I think he's a hell of a player. Now, I think there'd be some teams that will put their hands up for him. He's going to have a big marketplace. Mm-hmm. And by all accounts, you see the list. It's not the sexiest list for free agency. So,
oh, really? The 10th year in a row, it's not that good.
Well, last year.
Hey, when was the last one?
Gaudreau, Nazem Kadri. Like, there were some, we'll call it bigger names last year.
Some bigger guys, I guess, last year. I every once in a while you get a Gaudreau, you get a Tavares, you get a Parise and Suter. Brad Richards a decade ago. It's because what you're getting is teams that are trying to get their business done a year out. That's what it appears the Leafs are doing right now. Like, the Leafs have been awfully quiet, which has been the way that they've operated for years. There were more and more leaks coming out, I would say, the last month and a half, but that appeared to be more about kind of stabilizing the ship and letting people know, hey, we're still working here. Just because Dubas is out, Trey Living's in, it doesn't mean like this is some rudderless ship that is not operating properly. And I think that may have been somewhat, premeditated, I guess. Like, hey, let's let people know, like, calm the masses here. Things are happening. But now that we've gotten into draft week for the Leafs, they've been awfully quiet. And I would assume that's because they're trying to get their ducks in a row internally in terms of Matthews a year out, Nylander a year out, and some of their own UFAs.
Dude, they got a lot of work, man.
Yeah, who they still could be trying to negotiate with, right? Like, maybe they're negotiating with O'Reilly, Achari, Shen. I don't know. Like, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Maybe those guys have moved on. Maybe those guys are so close to July 1 that it's not worth it for them to agree to terms until they actually hit the market. But that's the nature of where the Leafs are at. I'm guessing there's a lot going on clearly behind the surface. But as of now, nothing's come out.
That's what I'm saying. Like, that's where I feel like we're going to be mid-show yelling and screaming about something, messy, and all of a sudden something's going to come down. It's like, oh, the Leafs have done this, Leafs have done that.
I bet there'll be one more transaction. The Taylor Hall thing happened today. There'll be one more transaction before the end of this show.
Yeah,
500.
So.
Whoa. And how much were you sweating when Justin Thomas was creeping up and up and
Not at
up?
all. Not
yeah,
at
you
all.
were. You were. You were.
Listen, moving
dude, he
day
shot
was...
60 on Saturday and got to like third place, and that was 5 G's on the line.
Yeah, I'll give him credit. He played extremely well. And then yesterday, unless you were going to go 10, 11, 12 under par somehow, you weren't catching Keegan Bradley. Like, that's the nature of that course. Like, I didn't realize until yesterday during the telecast, it's playing 6,800 yards. Like, that's a pitch and putt for those guys. Like,
dude, when they hit it 350 off, like not roll, like 350 on the fly, it's like it's a joke.
Yeah. Well, McIlroy said it. Like, McIlroy shot something like 64, 63, 65, 68, and he was T7. He's like, what do you want me to do, man? I thought I played pretty well, and I'm T7.
Yeah, they were showing that all day long. Like, guys were 64, 65, 67, 65, and they're not winning.
And
that's insane, dude. Keegan Bradley was the winner. His first 3 rounds were 62, 63, 64.
Right, exactly. And he got nervous on the back nine, man. He started bogeying holes, and you could tell he was.
Yeah, but you know who calmed him down? My guy, Scotty Vale.
Yes, Scotty Vale. Wow. Scotty will join us at 5:45. We'll get his take on that. What's it like to ride the wave to a win at an elevated event? That's a lot of bank. A lot of bank. And
3.6 to the winner.
Yeah, man. Scotty getting 10% of that? If so, man, I'm going to be making
that
it
what
rain
Caddy's get about 10? Caddies get about 10%. Is that usually the average?
Give or take.
Yeah, but it's plus. Like he's already going to the FedEx Cup, like to the finals, basically. Yeah. So it's like a big week for a caddy, man.
Oh, for sure, man. You cash it. Like he's won twice, I think, this year on tour. Like Keegan Bradley's back, man. He looks great. And he's in the running for the Ryder Cup. And yeah, Scotty Vail will join us at 5:45. And I'm a little bit nervous with Thomas, but again, there were other guys that were shooting the lights out. It didn't, like at one point, Bradley, I think, was he 28 under or something like that?
He was 26 under on the 12th
26 under, yeah. Like McIlroy was in the clubhouse at 18 under, and he was 8 shots back of Bradley, who was still out there.
Redonk.
Which is a little bit crazy. Also ridiculous, Scheffler finishes, I think, T3 or T4 again. That's another top 5. Every single week it's a lock. Scheffler, top 5. You can bank on it.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, it really was. The Jays' bats came alive. How meaningful is it considering it was against Oakland? We'll get into that. The day has come for Bob Bradley down at TFC.
Yeah.
It's the end of an era, and it was quite the era, I'll tell you that. And, man, I don't know how Michael Bradley's going to respond either. That's got to be awkward walking into the locker room after that.
Well, imagine on the back of the bus like 3 weeks ago, and it's your dad, and all the guys are like, I hate that bastard. I hope he gets cancer.
It's so bad.
Dude,
it is so
weird, man.
It's so awkward.
That's the thing.
Because those are conversations that go on in the back of the bus. It's like, this guy's so stupid. Why did he have me out in this and that?
Mm-hmm.
And when it's your old man, come on.
It's got to be the most awkward situation ever for Michael Bradley, because like Bob Bradley's a lifer. He's had a great career, like great career, and this will not define his career as a guy who's run a lot of like high-end soccer programs. But it was a disaster from the second he showed up, like a disaster. And like MLSE is in some shambles right now, man. We'll get into that, but there's been a lot of turnover.
And old Bobby boy, like, I think I can read some things pretty well as far as people and what they're all about. As soon as I put eyes on that guy, I'm like, this guy thinks he's too smart for his own good. That's what it came across as. And I don't know if ultimately that's what's happened, but that's the look it gave off. It's like, I'm a know-it-all and I'm going to fix this. And it's like, it's kind of a good vibe, but then you look back on it, retrospective analysis, you're like, that guy just thought he was too smart for his own good.
Well,
I think there's a lot of people that thought this should have happened a lot sooner, correct?
Yes, I think you're right. But I think, listen, the players are not off the hook either. There's a lot of guys making a lot of money with a lot of talent on that team, and this team stinks. Like,
dude, they're a gong show.
Absolutely. They lost again.
Get Stevie Caldwell to be the president of the team.
Well, now it's Terry Dunfield. Terry Dunfield's in as the interim coach, which...
Doesn't he work for TSN?
Exactly. He's been running like the under-17s. He doesn't have any pro experience as a coach. It's basically a scenario where they're like, get us through the year.
Hayes, doesn't Terry Dunfield, he's an analyst.
Yes, he's done a lot of analysis work in the past. And now he happens to be running the show at TFC. So, listen, I don't know if Terry knows what he's doing or how it's going to work out. And obviously he's in a tough spot because he's taken over a team that's been a mess.
I'm telling you, Stevie Caldwell, give him the shanty role for the TFC, and he'll turn it around.
All right. We're going to lose another soccer analyst to TFC.
He's got my vote.
I'm telling you, that's the play. Stevie Caldwell, president of TFC.
Okay.
President.
Yes, I would get behind that. Kevin.
It happened in the NFL. It happened in the NFL last year. You had a broadcaster take over as coaching, wasn't it?
Yeah, who was it?
Yeah, Jeff Saturday.
Yeah, Jeff Saturday. You're right. He went right from ESPN.
Dude, and all of his colleagues started ripping the decision. They were like, this is a garbage move by Indy. And I'm like, you were sitting beside that guy last week.
I want to see if anyone's going to say that about Dunfield. We need to get Gareth on. We'll just absolutely blast this hiring.
Chewing him apart. They were on a panel a week ago.
Hiring. It's
well, the worst is if you just tear the strip off the guy and then he gets back to his normal position. You're back on a panel with him and you're getting the horse eye right before airtime.
That's tough.
Well, that's what people are wondering. Like, well, Saturday, what's he going to do in the future? Is he going to get back on, Sunday football? Is he going to be on Get Up with Greeny? How's that going to work out? I don't know. But it's been a tumultuous, time at MLSE. Like, TFC's not in a good place, clearly. You got Larry Tannenbaum cashing out.
Yeah.
the Leafs and Raptors are not in turmoil, but I think it's safe to say that there's a lot of eyes on them in terms of what they're going to do and how they're going to operate.
Could you use the word in flux until they get sorted?
Possibly. Yeah, they have an interim, president and CEO right now. I think they're kind of transitioning at the top in terms of how things are going to operate at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. So there's certainly a lot in the air.
I can't wait to talk to this kid they drafted 13th
Grady
overall.
Dick. He's coming up in about an hour.
I don't know how many people I had when I was out in Alberta, saying, did you see who the Raptors took? And this guy has some flash and dash. I just can't wait to lay eyes on him and hear what he's got to say, because it sounds like he's a character.
He certainly has some personality. Yeah, he's coming up. Grady Dick will join us at 5:10. So we'll catch up with Grady in just under an hour. We got Scott Vail coming up, who was on the bag for Keegan Bradley at the Travelers. One of our favorites, Scotty Vail, coming up. We've got Jonathan Osorio will join us at 6:30. Gold Cup tomorrow. I think John Herdman again is speaking today about the issues with Canadian soccer and how they have no funding. Now there's a report out Westhead reporting that they might go bankrupt. It's really.
What does that mean? There's just going to be no what the hell does that mean?
Well, you would know as much as I would, but it basically is suggesting Canada soccer is running. They don't know how to create enough, funding, or they don't have the funding, or whatever they're spending on. Obviously, is not getting the necessary return. I don't know. Maybe they weren't anticipating this level of success, but they've hit it, and we're going to be hosting a World Cup in a few years. We better not have our guys.
Sad to hear, man.
Yeah, we got to figure this out, man. We can't have our players, going out there with a garbage bag as a jersey.
Well, guess what? The only way to figure it out is everybody enrolling in soccer. Everybody enrolling in soccer. It's not $200 for the season. It's $5,000.
That's probably what's going to happen. No, I'm going to have to pay more now. Yeah. I got kids in soccer. Guess what, Hayes?
Every resident of Canada is just going to get a bill in the mail from Canada Soccer. You owe us $5,000.
Right, retroactively. Your kids are in their 30s now, but you owe money from when they were playing in the 80s. Yeah, that's probably coming. So we got a big one today. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Grady Dick will join us in about 40 minutes. OverDrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Got a great story about our boy Eddie Olczyk that we'll get to a little bit later on.
I guarantee it's nothing to do with hockey.
Absolutely nothing to do with hockey, but it's maybe my favorite video I've ever seen. And there's some audio. We'll play it. The audio is kind of difficult to pick up on, but Eddie was a very happy man over the weekend. All right?
Wow.
I'm sure you guys can imagine where this is going.
I don't even I don't know what you're talking about, but I do. I can guess. I can guess what it has to do with.
Yes.
It's betting and ponies.
You know exactly what we're talking about. Yep. So a little ditty called the Hawthorne Invitational. If you haven't heard of it, I'll tell you a little bit more.
Dude, speaking of an invitational, I saw something greasy. There's a dude on tour. His name's Eric Cole. Okay? Mm-hmm. Just like the guy's name from Carolina. His name's Eric Cole. He almost won the Honda. He's made $3 million, and he showed up to some invitational today that he's played in for the last 15 years with a bunch of amateurs and stiffs. And he's going to beat them all for $20,000, and this guy just had to show up and play.
$20,000.
20 grand's the prize. I don't know if it's it's some old it's just some amateur classic, and this guy or not an amateur classic, just some classic. Look it up, Grappler. And this guy has to show up and take $20,000 off all these guys.
I think that happens more often than you think. Remember, Max Homa did that early in the year. Remember, he was playing someplace.
He won Torrey Pines, and he was playing in his Skins game on the Monday.
He made $400 or something. Shot 63, and I didn't know that Cole was doing that, but. There's an element that's kind of cool about it, but if you're second place, you're like, dude, did you really have to show up and take
Well, dude, if you're
prize?
some rock star amateur that's like, I'm going to smoke these guys, and this guy wheels in off the tour truck, and you're like, I'm done.
Yeah. Yeah, you're toast.
Yeah, but I mean, it's $20,000, and he's chipping away. So are you against that, or you're just saying allow the other guys to kind of make that money type of thing? Because
I just find it pretty rich for a guy that's got 3 sheets in his jeans thus far this year to show up and take $20K off some buddies of his at some classic shootout.
It's a free country. It just doesn't really seem necessary.
You know what? I know a guy that would probably do it.
Oh, yeah?
You
think I would do that?
Oh, for sure. You'd be like, my game's in order. I'm going to show you guys what I'm all about.
Well, you're right. When it's in order, I'm dying to play. I'll play anybody, anytime. If it's not in order, believe me, that's the last thing on earth I want to do.
Is it in order, though? That's the question.
No, it's not even close.
It's not?
Terrible. It's a real mess, and it's terrible. And it's bordering on Oakland Athletics level of embarrassment.
They're terrible.
Dude,
they are. How did they lose? How did the Blue Jays lose to them even the one game?
Isn't that a testament to how awful Oakland is? You take 2 of 3, and people are like, "Man, Jay, what are you doing?
Enough.
How did you lose on Friday night?"
Yeah,
like that's
they
how
are.
bad Oakland
They are
is.
Major League the first movie, like when they're bad.
It's terrible.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. Like, and the game, I was watching that Friday night game. It was on in the background. I'm like, they're all right. And then all of a sudden they weren't. I'm like, what's going on? I turn away and they lose.
Yeah, I mean, Oakland got on the board quick, and Vladdy finally hit a home run. He had 2 home runs at the Dome over the weekend. So I guess that is officially off his chest now that he's, hit a home run again at the Rogers Center. And Vladdy had a very productive weekend. There was a number of guys who had a great weekend. Kevin Biggio had a great weekend. But I just don't know how you place a value on it when it's against Oakland. And all you can do is play the games you're slated to play, right? But at home against Oakland, that should be a sweep. And that's how bad Oakland is. If you don't sweep them at home, you're legitimately disappointed. Yet the Jays woke up today and they're in the 3rd wildcard spot. So, there's still, as much as it's felt kind of like a negative tone around this team, in large part because of individual players like Manoah, Vladdy, I would say John Schneider, a lot of negative focus on the manager. They're still well above 500, and if the playoffs started tonight, they're in the 3rd wildcard spot.
Yeah,
so
and they can
salvage the year.
They can get cooking here and get on a roll, but every time they win 2 like this, and you've said it before, they're not in that bad a spot. They're right there. What they follow that up with is a disappointment.
Yes.
And then they rip off 5 losses, and we're like, they're a mess. And then they'll win 2 or 3 series, and they're like, wow, they're right where they need to be. They're just so inconsistent, and that's what they got to find in their game.
Yes, they do. And, the teams around them are obviously dealing with the same thing. Houston can't get off the mat. The Angels are starting to come back to reality a little bit. And the Yankees, like the report over the weekend that Judge is dealing with this toe ligament issue, he may not return this year. And if Judge misses the rest of the year, you got to pass the Yankees.
A toe ligament?
How wild is that it's a toe issue that has kept this guy out for a few weeks, and he's telling people he'll be back, and he very well could be. But it seems like there's a little bit of skepticism there that Judge may not return. So, 62 bombs. How much money did he get? $360 million or whatever it was. And now, a year later, this guy, a toe's going to knock this guy out. So
that's crazy. That's a weird injury. It must be something significant that he can't run or can't, almost like turf toe type of thing.
Exactly.
Right? Like, that's weird. Ugh.
Those are I mean, you guys, I'm sure, have had injuries where you probably could play through it, but it's probably a scenario where he's thinking, if I can shut it down for a month, hopefully it improves. But once you get 3 or 4 weeks in, if it hasn't, then you realize you're in trouble, right?
Yeah.
Like if an injury that could improve, it's 50-50, it improves without surgery, doesn't improve, that all of a sudden becomes something you really start to get worried about. And, that very well could be the situation here. But listen, the Jays, they got to win. Yusei Kikuchi pitched well. It's bizarro world. Kikuchi's been great. Manoah's in down in Dunedin doing whatever the hell he's doing.
Is there any updates on him at all? Like, that's
nothing.
Just been dark.
We were talking about it on Friday,
Girls.
Like, any update you're going to get is clearly going to be a positive one because no one can get access to him. He could be getting roasted down there, and you're never going to hear that. The Jays are just going to say everything's working out well.
I think he had one mandate going down there. And I think it was take 20 off your frame. Mm-hmm. I really do. It was like, go down there and get 20 off your frame, and that might help you get results on the mound. I don't know. I'm just guessing, but
I think the pitch clock. I think him looking. He looks tired. He looks like he's trying to rev it up. I think that's factored in. I do, and I don't know if they've put a finite number on it necessarily, but I think they clearly committed to you go down there for a few weeks, and he's down there for a few weeks. Like they're not going to deviate from that plan. They've survived without him for the most part. On Saturday, they're going to have to probably go with an opener. I'm assuming Richards or Francis will probably get the ball, and they'll figure it out. But
I had to do that with my buddy Lavi.
Lavi made you shave how much?
Well, he told me, he's like, you're 212. I want you at 201. I'm like, first of all, I was thinking you can just say 200, Lavi.
Yeah.
And he goes, every day before practice, I want you to ride the treadmill or run on the treadmill or ride the bike for 45 minutes every day. And I was like, 45 minutes every day? I'm like, I got to practice. I got to think. Like in my head, I couldn't digest that. I'm like, every day. And he was like, yes, every day. So there I was. You can imagine what that scene was like. Every day.
What about the diet, though? Like, remember when I was doing Tough Mudder? I'm not being a goon here, but I used to go to the gym all the time. And I would go home with 20 wings and fries. And it was like, in the gym, like 45 minutes doesn't mean anything if you're going home and you got 2 large wheels and you're sitting on your ass watching Monday Night Football.
Like garbage food wasn't a part of my routine.
So it wasn't a problem then. It clearly was just.
Well, I was living the high life. It was nice restaurants all the time. I never cooked at home, but I wasn't eating McDonald's. I would be eating like quality meals. It wasn't garbage. I wasn't taking home, what did you say, 2 wheels a night and some wings?
20 wings.
It's more portion control,
I don't think
I guess.
Nobody does that.
I wouldn't suggest anyone do that. I certainly wouldn't suggest a pro athlete ever get on that regimen.
You just dropped that like that was a matter of fact. It's like, I was working out and then just brought 20 wings and a couple wheels home.
No. Those were separate conversations. I'm saying
Dude, in your 20s, I don't know if I know a guy that just was all in on wings and wheels. Like,
well, I did enjoy wings.
You had a love affair with that garbage.
I did. It was awful in retrospect. You look back on it now. And I still do. I love those foods. It's not like they're completely cut out.
No,
it's more about, committing to a game plan and sticking to it.
Most college students will. It's wings and chicken
it's cheap
and wheels.
A lot of times.
Because it's cheap,
like
exactly.
Sandwiches and stuff. It's all about, you don't have any money if you go to university or college.
Right, exactly.
You're just trying to survive. But so 45, was that on a game day too? Like on game days?
No, any practice day or day off too. You got to come in and just do it.
Days off.
Whatever. He just said.
At Pinehurst and
he just said if you don't do it, you're going to have a serious problem with me, which I basically already did. Because I told you the story. My roommate quit hockey, retired, and he became my coach. Mm-hmm. So the first thing he does is calls me up and he goes, "Look, man, I'm going to be a coach, and I've spoken to Lavi, and I got some bad news. Lavi hates you, and he thinks you're out of shape." I go, "What?" Because I guess when the coaches,
that's a tough phone call.
It is.
Mike really despises you.
No, because I guess the coach gets tipped off 3 weeks before, and he starts scouting out the team. Mm-hmm. So he said, "Lavi's been watching you, and he hates you, and he thinks you're out of shape." And I go, "Oh my God!" So I'm going to be living a nightmare with this Lavi character, and that's what he said on the bike every day.
Wow.
What a first impression.
Yeah, so he doesn't know that my roommate said that to me, but I got to meet this Lavi guy, and he's grin screwing me, acting like it's nice, and I know that he hates me because he's like, "Oh, dog," and I'm like, "This, you son of a."
He's giving you the Monty right off the bat.
That's why
he's Monty grin screwing me, and I'm looking at him going, "You're grin. You have the nerve to grin screw me, and I know you hate my guts."
But then that's why you pointed out he had a booger in his nose. That's probably, and then it went south right after that.
And the next day he was flying low, and it just sent it to a different stratosphere.
Wow. So would he make sure to like schedule a walk by when you're on the bike or on the treadmill?
Dude,
like he was around?
It was the casual coffee walk around and then a little horse eye from the side of the weight room. It's just you want to run off the elliptical and just tackle him and just punch him in the side of the head.
Right. Was that at any point? Let me really grill you here because it feels like this is an inquisition. Were your teammates doing something really fun at any point where you were in there grinding?
Dude, the worst thing is when a skinny guy, you would see them in the medical room with no gear on, like just their spandex, and they'd be laughing, having a chew and a coffee and picking their toenail. And I'm like, I'm grinding out sweating. I was the only guy. I was pointed out. No, what is it? Like I was singled out.
Singled out.
I was singled out, and I was the only guy doing it. Wow. But I'll tell you what, day by day, I felt faster and faster and faster. And then Lavi came up to me and he said, "You see how fast you're skating in practice right now?" I said, "Yeah, Lavi, I am." He goes, "That's why you're on the treadmill for 45 minutes every day. And now don't get above 201 pounds and we won't have a problem." Mm-hmm. But we had another problem right after that.
Well,
my chin strap.
What are you going to do? There's only so much you can do. Right.
He hated your chin strap?
No, he said every day, do up your chin strap. And then he came up to me and he goes, "I'm starting to think you got a serious attitude problem because I ask you to do your chin strap up every day and you don't do it." And I just said, "Lavi, I've never done my chin strap up for practice." Then it just went.
National League. Figure it out, Lavi. Well, hey, listen, it all worked out in the end, and hopefully that applies to Alec Manoah and any other athlete that is possibly going through a Laviolette situation, if that's what it is, right?
Right.
All right, so we've got Grady Dick coming up in about a half an hour, Scott Vill in about an hour. It is Election Day in Toronto. We figured maybe we'd try to work on a bit here where we're kind of pitching the city on possibly being the sports mayor of the city. And generally what happens in elections, right, is you attach yourself to one issue. Like that's what you're known as. That's what you're known for. So we'll get to that a little bit later on where we'll go around the table. We'll make our pitch in terms of that one issue that we want to be connected to, and then we'll post it on Twitter. We'll get people to vote. We'll see how people feel about it because that could be probably not as important of an election as what's going on today, but not far off. Right? We don't want to sell ourselves short on that. A lot of people want to get involved. So we'll get to that a little bit later on as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, so we've had a number of moves in the NHL already today. Boston is moving pieces around, and it sounds as if they've opened up about $11 million in salary cap, and they're going to try to make moves. You're seeing other teams in similar situations, bracing for possible movement. And when it comes to the Leafs, it feels as if it's really going to come down to if they can sign their own guys before they start to implement maybe the second wave of movement. And obviously that will include Matthews, which will not affect this year's cap because he has 1 year left. Nylander, same thing. He's got $6.9 million on the cap this year. But O'Reilly, Shen, maybe Achari, maybe others, like they need new deals. And
it'll be fascinating what the Nylander ask is on a new deal. It'll be really fascinating.
That's the one. I think he's the most fascinating out of that, depending on price point, because he's making, we'll call it 7. We'll round up.
Yep.
7. And
40
there's a lot of people
score.
that 40 goal, but one time, not several times. Once.
Jamie, these guys 80, don't care. They don't care.
I know, but it's 80-some points. Like, is it 8? Is it 9? Is it 10? Like, I think he's the most unique as far as where the comparables will fall. And that's the one.
Yeah.
Matthews is going to write his own check type of thing. He'll get that sorted. But I think Nylander's is a very, very interesting case study for me.
I agree with you, and I don't see why Willie would accept really anything from this team under $10 million, quite frankly. Like, and that doesn't mean that he's worth that or what. But let me put it this way. Let me explain. Nylander.
So we got another $10 million guy on
Mitch
our
Marner
hands.
signed 4 years ago for $10.9. Why would Willie still believe he's $1 million or $2 million behind Mitch? Why would he? I think Mitch is a better player. He's not exponentially better than William Nylander.
Okay, but if that's the case, don't you just say, like,
yes, that possibly could come. I'm just saying, to be fair to Willie, if I'm Nylander a year out and I just scored 40, why would you be like, hey, yeah, I'll take 8.5 and be $2.5 million behind Marner when you're about to be a UFA, and it's going to kick in a year. Like, that's what I'm saying. These guys all use the internal scale. That's all we've heard for years. It doesn't matter what else is happening around the league. It's internally. And if that's the case, he's looking at Marner saying, well, he got 10.9 3 years ago or whatever it was.
Doesn't that make some of these deals look like Brady Tkachuk and Tim Stützle deals and stuff that signed for $8 million?
Absolutely.
Those, like, doesn't that make some of these deals look pretty good?
Yes.
Like, that's the thing. Like, that's –
Brady Tkachuk, if he fired together another year this year, like, what the hell would he sign? Like, he's a $10 million guy for fun.
Right. Well, and that's it. That's all I'm saying about Willie. Like, Willie's in a different – I think if this is any other team, and I think the Leafs at some point have to put their stake in the ground, and it may be with Nylander to be the first one. But I'm saying from William Nylander's standpoint, a year out, coming off 40, where other guys have been paid, he's probably – why would he take, less than 8.5 or 9 anyway? Like, I don't see that happening. No way. But if it's gonna end at 9, then you're gonna start by asking for 10.5, right? Like, why would you? You're gonna start there, and then maybe you're gonna meet in the middle if you want to.
You can ask for anything you want. It's what you're going to receive,
right?
And then if you decide that doesn't fit, then I'm gonna move on, or I'm gonna play it out. Like, that's
which is his right to do if he wants.
Yeah.
And then the Leafs got to make a call. More on that in the next hour. We got Grady Dick coming up. Scott Vail, the caddy for Keegan Bradley, will join us as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.